No. No!
Oh my god, he's so sad, the poor little baby!
Oh! In the comments under the Kirby lore reactions, a lot of you guys have suggested I check out this video by Designing For about Bowser. Now, while I do know a little bit about Mario, I feel like it's kind of impossible not to. I personally haven't really played the games growing up. I do recall playing a Mario game. I don't remember what the title was, but platformers just really weren't my thing. It was only until pretty recently when I really played my first platformer, being Hollow Knight. And that was certainly an experience. But generally speaking, when it comes to Bowser, I felt like he was kind of the quintessential bad guy for the sake of being bad. And he's kind of reached that iconic legendary status because of, you know, just his design and his whole thing going on with Mario and it being like a super popular franchise. However, if learning about the Kirby lore has taught me anything, it's that there is so much more behind these characters than meets the eyes from a casual viewer, such as myself. At the current moment. Also, if you're new here, my name is Zero, and here on this channel, we love to do deep dives into video game lore because I obsess over learning about new things. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Bowser is about. But anyways guys, before we get into the video, please make sure to go and support the OG video. Link to that is at the very top of the description. As always, showtime! Oh yeah, this is funky.
If there's one villain in gaming who needs no introduction, it's Bowser. Immortal enemy of the Mario Brothers, kidnapper of Princess Peach, staunch believer in wage equality, loving father, and the most recognizable bad guy that video games have to offer, there is absolutely no doubt that Bowser's earned his place as one of gaming's most defining characters. When one reminisces on video game bosses, memories of battles against the Koopa King very often aren't too far behind. And it's quite rare that you'll find a list of greatest villains in gaming without Bowser's name listed somewhere on its ranks.
I mean, yeah,
but
that is true.
Bowser is
I mean, even if you don't know anything about Mario, just seeing this design, you'd probably recognize who it is. I personally really love, like, these video game villains, and I feel as if they can make or break a game for me. There will be times when I feel like if the threat that I'm facing off against isn't very substantial, then I don't really have the motivation to continue playing. Or if the villain just isn't very interesting, then yeah, I don't really see any point in playing anymore. But as stated earlier, I always feel like Bowser's motivations were kind of just kidnap Princess Peach for whatever reason. And maybe there's been a few deviations from that, but I mean, that's kind of the meme, right? Where she always gets kidnapped. So I'm looking forward to seeing what more there is to his character.
Undoubtedly one of the greats. How great is another question. The guy may be a militaristic conqueror with dreams of a universal empire and the manpower to back it up. But he also plays tennis and golf with Daisy and Toad on Saturdays and makes sure his son doesn't play video games for too long. That's something that should erode a villain's mystique.
Well, if you wanted to get me to play Xenoblade Chronicles, there's your reason.
Rapidly. If he's doing goofy stuff like this, how can you even take the guy seriously as a threat? Moreover, despite his intimidating appearance, Bowser's been beaten by Mario more times than most are willing to count. Yet he's still making appearances as the series' big bad villain based on his strength alone. And it's not like he's completely transitioned into a comedy character or is just naturally a...
Isn't that the villain from... what was it? Crash Bandicoot? I didn't play any of the Crash Bandicoot games either. And most of you guys who have been watching the reactions are probably like, Zero, when in the world was your childhood? I don't know, man. I can't even remember. I don't think I really played that many video games back in the day. The only video game that really stuck in my mind was probably Twilight Princess. And I think I had Metroid Prime. The one that was on the Wii. But yeah, don't know what this guy's deal is. He's got an N on his forehead, and he's probably some sort of mad scientist. If I had to guess, Crash Bandicoot lore also probably goes super hard, as is usually the case with most of these series.
A funny design like fellow villainous great Dr. Eggman. No.
And Sonic is yet another series that I don't know anything about. The only thing that I do know is my experience playing the very first Sonic game. And that was it.
Now you know why I am the best.
Sometimes, players are meant to fear Bowser on appearance and stature alone. But how can they after years of beating him into the ground over and over again? Bowser's an icon, sure, but so is the right Pong paddle. So are dozens of the Koopa King's contemporaries who have managed to endure into the modern age. Bowser might as
Wait, I'm pretty sure based on those graphics, was that from Twilight Princess? No, I don't think so. Actually, never mind. I take back that take back. This is almost definitely Twilight Princess.
Bowser might as well just be lucky that the Mario series has carried him to a spot of immortality, right? It's not an uncommon idea that the guy is just great by default, because he's attached to gaming's flagship series that actually has a consistent recurring villain between entries.
Pokemon villain constantly changes. Minecraft doesn't really have a villain. Call of Duty Teabag Master 420 hits puberty and plays something else. I feel kind of glad that I didn't play Call of Duty. I feel like I would be a very different person if I had played Call of Duty growing up. And while I do understand the appeal of Pokemon, I never really played any other entry except for Emerald. But I feel like Pokemon is one of those games that people don't really play it for the villain. They play it for the Pokemon. And, well, that makes a whole lot of sense. It's kind of the creature collection game aspect, in a similar fashion to Minecraft, with it just being more open sandbox and you can do anything that you want.
No change necessary, no depth necessary. Bowser is cool because Bowser is cool. And because he's been here for so long, he deserves a legacy amount of respect, right?
Pretty much. Oh.
But that is not nearly enough for Bowser, and I'm confident that most people know that. Bowser isn't content to just be a final boss, or yet another playable character in the Mario spin-offs roster. No. Bowser is a villain built specifically for video games. Bowser has defined what it means to be a gaming baddie more than any other antagonist, paving the way for bigger and better boss fights while still keeping a mystique all his own. He's made himself an irreplaceable part of the Mario universe, arguably its second most important character behind the plumber himself. And it adds so much to its...
Poor Luigi, man. I've heard the Luigi's Haunted Mansion games are really good, though. I've never played them myself, but they kinda seem up my alley, considering my personal love for horror.
World, mythos, and identity by just being himself. Bowser is a character that constantly reflects on his past and himself, and instead of reinventing the wheel every time, builds on his prior appearances to add to his characterization, creating a shockingly complex, yet instantly understandable antagonist.
Really? Well, okay. First, though, I kind of need to know his motivation. Is it just to gain power? To specifically beat Mario? To marry Princess Peach? But I mean, regardless of that, it does make a whole lot of sense to reflect on himself and improve through each entry because he wants to win. And the only way to do that is to realize your own mistakes. It's also really funny that we gave Bowser like a kid that he has to raise, and he has to go through these like familial problems that all other parents have gone through before. I wonder when Junior got added in, though, and when this decision was made, because this is a really good way to add something new to the series while also adding further depth to your previous antagonist. Actually, now that I think about it, who did Bowser have Junior with? Maybe I don't want to know the answer to that. I'm sure it was through some sort of form of mitosis.
Who throughout all of his struggles and defeats is always developing into a more complete image of what it means to be a video game villain. And because Bowser is never satisfied, because he's always growing, because he's always looking to develop some aspect of himself to capitalize on his last appearance, he isn't just a great video game villain. To this day, Bowser is still the greatest villain in all of video games.
Oh, that's a statement. Let's see if it holds up.
Let's start with Bowser's most obvious strength, his general appearance and gameplay application. Bowser is a classic gaming boss, first appearing in Super Mario Bros. In 1985. As such, his appearance needs to immediately inform the player of the danger he possesses, what kind of options they can or can't use against him, and ultimately show that, yeah, he's a pretty bad guy. And Bowser is ticking all of those boxes better than most could hope for. Original design showed Bowser as simply an angrier, bipedal Koopa Troopa, but his final design took more direct inspiration from Alakazam the Great's King Gruesome, with a more pronounced jaw, horns, and spikes, as well as the aggressive Chinese soft-shell turtle. All of this adds up to Bowser's design saying three simple things. He's big, he's tough, and you can't jump on him. That last one being especially important as Bowser is the first enemy in Super Mario Bros.
And it's shaped around the gameplay, a staple of any good character design, informing the player at a moment's glance as to what exactly this character is meant to be and what your options are.
That the player cannot jump on, literal fire excluded.
Okay, I see. I did understand the editor's note at first, but I gotcha. Yeah, no, not the literal first enemy that you can't jump on. The freaking piranha plants. I've done quite a number on me back when I was playing Mario, but I always thought they looked really cool.
It also represents something of a turning point for Mario. The plumber can normally take on any challenge with his athleticism and skill alone. But Bowser is an enemy that he's just not strong enough to beat head-on. Instead, Mario has to use the environment in order to overcome the crafty Koopa King. From a basic level, Bowser is designed specifically to counter Mario. Jumps don't work, he shoots out fire so that Mario can't just stay still and this whole thing can be an actual fight. And Bowser can hop around almost as high as the plumber himself, body blocking Mario from simply bouncing over. Only with proper timing and skill, or just arriving at the right time, can Mario sneak past Bowser and steal a win from his physically superior foe.
Jumping over me? You cheated not only the game, but yourself. You didn't grow, you didn't improve, you took a shortcut and gained nothing. You experienced a hollow victory. Nothing was risked and nothing was gained. It's sad that you don't know the difference, Mario. But honestly, dudes, jumping over Bowser is such a weak mindset.
You don't overpower Bowser so much as you outplay Bowser. Or you come in with a super mushroom and tank a hit, or a fire flower to
show me your true form.
Him from afar. Which, of course,
the random Joker line kills me.
Requires Mario to go untouched through the villain's lair in order to show up in a superpowered form, proving that Mario can and will take on Bowser's worst to save the princess. In this one simple appearance,
Princess Peach looked really different back then, didn't she?
Bowser is doing a whole lot to establish his relationship with both Mario and the player. He's a big bad brute that you can only face head on if you got through his traps unscathed. Can't be beaten with Mario's basic skill set, and is foiled by his own hubris again and again and again. This relationship would go on to define future Bowser appearances as a boss. Mario 3 played with the verticality of the game, challenging Mario to avoid Bowser in close quarters combat, tricking the reptilian regent into tearing through his own arena. Mario World limits Mario's ability to jump high with the Koopa Clown Car, needing to use the new grabbing and throwing mechanics to nail Bowser with his own Mecha Koopas. Mario 64,
So long, Bowser!
Yeah, that one's obvious, but it's a great introduction to the idea of 3D movement, requiring players to outmaneuver a foe that's constantly trying to prevent them from grabbing at his weak point, evolving with a fire that homes in on Mario, and teleportation to make it trickier to do so in the
I've only heard incredible things about Mario 64, and it's really no surprise to me that they've utilized this new 3D aspect of a Mario game to its absolute benefit. This is what you love to see, when a game gains another whole dimension, and it's not just because, graphics have updated to this kind of thing, and so we wanted to do it as well, but they actually came up with more creative ideas because of it. Or to be more exact, came up with more creative ideas to fully utilize this other dimension.
Refights. Galaxy 2, 3D Land, 3D World all take unique aspects of Mario's movement and both limit them and challenge them. Bowser always testing each game's unique quirks and forcing the player to show their understanding of it. Mario always looking for the right moment to capitalize on Bowser's overcommitment to absolutely flattening him. Odyssey pushes this a step further, taking the expected capitalizing on Bowser's weaknesses shtick and having him fake Mario out, pretending to be reeling so he can take one last cheap shot at the plumber during his final battle. Showing after all this time, the old Coop still has new tricks. Even in the new Super Mario Bros. Games, perhaps the least inspired Mario titles thematically, Bowser proves his chops as an effective challenge. At first remixing his original encounters with dry and giant Bowser battles, then subverting them completely with showdowns ending with massive Bowser chases through obstacle courses. The Titanic Turtle doing everything he can to stop Mario from clearing one final level and foiling his plans.
No.
Bowser has the occasional miss. Galaxy does have Bowser rivaling Mario with his own star spin, but the plumber can take him on pretty even footing with Baby Luma, resetter of universes, by his side. And there is always the pretty...
Assuming there's some sort of hidden lore behind that tiny little star. It is actually the destroyer of worlds, an eldritch being. You can never underestimate the cute ones, especially if they're small, round, and pink.
Mindless excursion that is...
Mario! How dare you disturb my family vacation?
What?
But all of Bowser's bouts capitalize on the new mechanics or design philosophies of whatever game he's in. And while that seems like such a simple philosophy to follow, contemporaries from other legendary series are normally pretty content to stick with the same formula with a couple new attacks or mechs or monster designs each time. For the sheer amount of time...
Don't know anything about Mega Man either. I'm sorry, dudes. But I mean, I guess the less that I know about things, the more things that I have to explore, so it's a good thing. Depending on your perspective on that.
Times that he appears, Bowser is surprisingly never content to rest on his laurels, changing up his fight every time he can, with the only through line between them being he's always naturally stronger than Mario, but the Mushroom Kingdom's hero will always find a way to get the upper hand. And when Bowser lets his power loose...
Oh god. We're about to see God Bowser. I do feel like it's a staple for any series to have their main character be not as powerful as the villain. Because, like, let's say in JoJo's Part 3, our main cast certainly does have, like, powerful stand abilities. However, the enemies that you face off against arguably have better powers, and some are even straight up cheating. But because your main cast doesn't have as powerful of an ability as the villain, then it forces them to go about it in much more creative ways, and really opens up the opportunity for more potential plot threads and for development of the character. I do think it's usually always a safe bet to do that with your story. But I will say that I've always been a little more intrigued in villains that are not as powerful as the main character, and the many things that they've had to do in order to face off against our MC. I'm not really an expert here, so I can't really lay out the differences between those two different dynamics, but I do appreciate the variety.
It can be terrifying.
Look at him go. No.
Yoshi's Island is the first time we see Bowser breaking all of his limits. And boy oh boy does he make an impression. The toddler tyrant becomes an absolutely monstrous figure, looming over the horizon, slowly approaching to crush absolutely everything in his wake. The battle is a race against time, Yoshi desperately trying to belt the beast back with a catapult barrage of eggs. Footholds grow more scarce as boulders rain from the heavens, Bowser doing everything he can to make sure the brave dinosaur falls, even if he has to raise his entire castle to the ground in order to do it. It's a heart-pounding battle, the inevitability of Bowser's absolute destruction inching ever closer to a player with every mistake. Every flutter jump to nab an egg, another close brush with death. It's a set-piece moment ingrained into the hearts of anyone who's ever cleared Yoshi's Island.
Nice.
And it's Bowser. The same Bowser who gets foiled time and time again, constantly trying new things and making mistakes along the way, is able to give a fight like this. And it's not an isolated instance either. Giga Bowser rises from the depths to raise the Demon King in a more...
God. The old Bowser was scary in the NES era. Characters were more symbolic, so you had room to use your imagination. When I looked at the original Bowser, I saw a frenzied, terrifying monster. But advancements in technology have allowed designers to convey characters in greater detail. And in recent games, his image has steadily become cuter. Naturally, this is a current game, so it needs to use his current design. And from there, Giga Bowser, unexpectedly, happened to come into existence. Characters were more symbolic, so you had room to use your imagination. I see. I mean, it's based off of the same principle as, like, a horror flick. Or, well, a monster flick, I should say. It's more terrifying if you get the audience to start imagining what the monster is like, because they imagine it in their own unique way that they find to be scary. But when you actually show it, it's kind of like, it's whatever. Wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. But because of that, and especially with some more, the good ones at least, recent horror games, we've gotten some truly terrifying 3D models.
Gruesome form, not flinching from the attacks of any foe who dare challenge him. Or Fury Bowser, a herald of destruction who is glad to rain down a hellfire of flaming spikes on Mario, and even his own
set piece
son,
is really cool.
destroying everything he can see and untouchable by anything less than great Super Saiyan God Mario.
Nyan God.
In spite of his many defeats, in spite of the ease in which he can be dispatched, Bowser can still strike fear into players. And that is the key to his longevity. No matter how much time has passed and how many times he gets knocked down, Bowser has never faltered as a credible villain.
It's always due to his adaptability. And the fact that he always changes himself up. And I mean, this is like speaking from an in-universe perspective, but outside of that, it's cool that the developers are always coming up with new ways to showcase Bowser and his capabilities. Because with the examples that we've shown so far, every single game they've introduced these new mechanics and they've wanted Bowser to use them in order to defeat the player. But I'm also assuming that from a gameplay perspective, these are mechanics that you slowly build up to throughout the game. And then during the final boss fight, it all clicks because you have that knowledge and practice that was built up by playing it. All these different parts kind of just flow into each other and make a really good difficulty progression. Plus, an intriguing final fight against one of gaming's greatest villains.
Every fight with Bowser is a new experience, designed to test Mario or whoever he's facing's capabilities in a different way, challenging them to use all they've learned to overcome him. Sometimes he'll try to be crafty, sometimes he'll look for an honorable duel, and sometimes he'll go all out, not caring what he wrecks in order to finally slay his adversary. But no matter what happens, no matter what sensibilities Bowser tries to tackle, taking Bowser down is almost always a satisfying capstone to any of Mario's adventures. All of Bowser's fights exist for the sake of enhancing the video game surrounding him. And his personality, that of a prideful brute that'll try everything to beat his foe while giving them their fair shot to hit him right back, makes him work every single time, regardless of the fight's actual difficulty. And it's this personality, that driving force, that elevates Bowser beyond just a great boss. It turns him into arguably the best written character Nintendo has ever had.
Really? Really going that far, eh? Didn't recognize all the people there, but I think I saw a few Fire Emblem characters, as well as the Golden Mantis thing from one of the older Monster Hunter games. When I was streaming Monster Hunter, I did hear about it, or actually no, it was probably in the comments under the VOD, that there was this like mantis creature that you would fight and it would be, it's whatever. But then all of a sudden it just like dons on this armor or something. Or no, it like puppeteers some sort of fortress and then fights you with it. I forget the exact details, but from what was described in that comment, I recall thinking that it was pretty darn cool.
Before 1996, Bowser was a fine baddie, but he was admittedly losing some of his edge. The Ox King inspiration might have led to an intimidating design, but he was already a playable racer in Super Mario Kart. The fearsome Demon King now losing to the likes of Toad and Koopa Troopa in silly go-kart races. He's had embarrassing losses in edutainment games, an inspired and goofy performance by Dennis Hopper in the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
I'd like the Koopa Special, Dino, Lizard, Hold the Mammal, and Spicy.
A fun romp.
What the fuck was that? I wasn't aware of this movie's existence. I feel glad that I wasn't a Mario fan and went to watch it. I mean, to be fair, I haven't even seen the new Mario movie. I have heard good things about it though, I think, but it was just never really anything that interested me.
Through the Super Mario Adventures comics, and had more of a dumb, oafish demon portrayal in Super Mario Bros. The Great Mission to Save Princess Peach, but Bowser lacked a unifying voice for his character. Well, except for...
Then, as the old saying goes, he who coops and runs away lives to coop another day.
In spite of all the good he was doing as a boss, Bowser was a mess of a character, ranging from Demon King to Saturday morning cartoon villain to megalomaniacal germaphobe political candidate. There was no cohesion to Bowser's character, nothing that stopped him from being a collection of silly tropes and jokes. A gag villain made to fill any role out of necessity.
I mean, what the heck was that? I don't want to go back and see that. I never want to see that again in my life. But I guess it's understandable. It's like, we have this concept, and we made it, and we can build upon it. We don't know what it is quite yet, but eventually, as we're working on the project, it'll become more clear. That was kind of how King Dedede started as well. He was just that silly penguin that you fought at the end of the game. But then, you know, there was that untapped potential there that somebody saw, and so we kind of went with it.
Mario's bad guy, so if Mario's doing something, yeah, he can fit the role, I guess. But through this confusion, a little game came along and changed the way Bowser would be portrayed.
Isn't this the Mario RPG game?
Forever.
Wasn't there like a newly released one or like a remake of this?
Super Mario RPG is one of the most important games that the Mario series has ever had. It's the franchise's swan song for the Super Nintendo, releasing right before the Nintendo 64 would thunder onto store shelves. It features the first look at
those old advertisements were pretty crazy, man. I mean, knowing how Japanese commercials go, they probably had crazier stuff over on their side.
At Mario's world as more than a collection of levels, bringing together its various races and communities and kingdoms, celebrating the lands that Mario would traverse. It established the writing style of all future Mario RPGs. Adventurous, but irreverent and incredibly silly, cracking jokes in the same breath that it gave time and development to its characters in. And most importantly, it would establish and solidify the character of King Bowser Koopa for all the decades that followed.
That makes sense. I mean, it's an RPG. There's clearly a lot more writing going on behind it, so it's a good opportunity to really think out your character. Or else, like, what would be the foundation for the story, right?
Bowser's introduced right at the start of the game, and fulfills his usual role in record time. Kidnap Princess Peach, Bowser's Castle, fight Mario in a battle where Mario has to use the environment to his advantage to win, lose.
No.
Oh my god, he's so sad, the poor little baby!
Oh!
All within 10 minutes at best. It's
Bruh.
the Mario formula boiled down to its most basic elements and mocked after only 11 years of what was already becoming a really predictable story. But then, the weaponized world of Square literally crashes into the Mario world. The Smithy Gang taking Bowser's Keep as their own and setting out to spread a more traditional RPG vibe across the wonderland of the Mushroom Kingdom.
What in the
And
world?
on being defeated, dethroned, and actively deposed as the main villain, Bowser fights back. He rallies the scattered remnants of his troops, marching them around the world, his numbers slowly depleting as he moves from town to town, until finally, he finds himself alone.
No.
He reminisces on the days of battling Mario, the princess screaming, being the one in the position of power. And in this moment of weakness, he turns around and sees Mario right behind him. And though he has to talk himself into it, trying his best to play it cool and
Ask
not show
for
his
help.
emotions, insisting that it's Mario joining his team, Bowser
course.
joins the party, teaming up with Mario.
Man, Bowser's such a tsundere. He just can't be honest with himself. I never knew anything about this. I am really glad, though, that, yeah, we finally got to flesh out his character a whole lot more in the Mario RPG. And it's awesome.
Mario to defeat a greater evil. For the rest of the game, Bowser isn't just a great character. He absolutely steals the show in every single scene he's in. He sweet talks an abused
Give me a
Chain
kiss.
Chomp into opening up before turning it into an equipable weapon. Crashes a wedding with his brute strength alone. Terrifies brainwashed minions and deserters in his keep just by standing around. And even writes haiku on how his brilliance is wasted on these lesser villains. He's got a weapon that's just throwing Mario directly into an enemy's face, playing on his antagonism with the plumber, even while they're forming a unified front. But underneath
Oh
all
my god. Okay, I get it now. I get why so many like content creators were so hyped when the Mario RPG remake, remaster, whatever that was, got announced and they showed a trailer for it. Man, that's just so fun. And I bet you that in this game, when you're playing it, you probably get the same feeling that I do when I play through Trails in the Sky, of the writers just having a lot of fun with everything. I mean, of course, that doesn't mean the story is sloppy, but like, you can clearly tell that they enjoyed making it.
of that aggression is a softer side. Bowser finding one of his minions who's left the Koopa Troop with kids and giving him his blessing to live a happy life, or treating his old caretaker, Kamek, kindly after beating the brainwashing out of him. Bowser takes a one-dimensional villain profile, being evil for the sake of it, and dissects it from every angle, turning him equal parts sympathetic and hilarious. To Bowser, being the villain, the #1 bad guy in the world, is everything. A status symbol that proves
This is
he's the
motivation.
biggest, baddest brute around. That reaffirms how
Respectable.
great his physical strength and charisma really are. He is motivated by his pride in himself and his status. His desire to cement his place as top dog, taking priority over any other thought in his mind, and making him eager to prove that he is just as good as he hypes himself up to be. Yet underneath that brash...
Well, that's the thing, right? It's respectable because it's not just empty words with no action. You can clearly see that he tries his absolute best to be just what he says he wants to be. Or rather, what he is.
exterior, he truly does care for all the Goombas that you crush beneath your feet, and is as respected and feared as he is sincerely loved by his minions. He has his oafish moments. He's got the worst armor in the game and not great spells. He's more often than not a bit dense and gets lost in his own bravado more than a couple times. But he's Bowser, baby. Super Mario RPG takes what was just a cool design with a straightforward motivation and turns him into a three-dimensional character. One with clear motivations and reasons for being the way he is. And one that constantly toys with the idea of what being a villain truly means. And over 25 years removed from Bowser's big breakout role, yeah, I'd say he did a pretty amazing job.
Oh, this makes me happy.
All about
I'm so happy for Bowser, man.
Bowser's future appearances would be informed and strengthened by this one role. Why is he racing go-karts and teeing up with Diddy Kong and Rosalina? Because he has to be the best. That's what a good villain is supposed to do.
Amateur.
Why does this tyrant care about the results of a board game? Because it would be a pretty crummy party without Bowser, that's why. It's his duty and pleasure to crash it. Bowser loves being evil because it's a reaffirmation of everything that makes him personally great. And of course, nowhere is this better explored than in his future RPG appearances. Paper Mario shows Bowser stealing a holy relic.
Well, I mean, I should have guessed that Paper Mario was more of an RPG. I thought it was like a style change. This is a series that I'm a little more familiar with because I've only ever heard people rant about it. And was it Paper Mario? I feel like I've read a few comments here and there that mentioned that there's like a pretty iconic villain from the Paper Mario series. Some sort of clown or jester character.
From his world's gods, and using it to nearly kill Mario, taking the opportunity to cause mischief all around the world. But here's also where he starts to develop feelings for Princess Peach, in the games at least. Wishing on stars that she'll like him and constantly trying to flex on how he's so much more powerful than Mario now. What started as a political power play and trying to prevent the princess's magic from foiling his plans has turned into actual affection for his captive, as well as enhancing his rivalry with Mario into a more personal contest.
Oh god.
Girls are watching now.
You're doing great.
Superstars.
That moment in the gym when the hot girl steps in. Yeah, I can bench 10 more kilograms. Not gonna lie though, that like really stupid part of every guy's brain is pretty good for getting gains. Not gonna lie.
Saga shows a more diplomatic Bowser, willing to team up with the brothers Mario in order to get back at some villain who stole Princess Peach's voice. The prideful Koopa King not willing to let anyone mess with his damsel to distress. However, partway through the game, he ends up with amnesia, finding himself the eager sidekick to the master thief, Popple.
Oh no,
As
what the fuck?
Bowser is an earnest cheerleader for his new boss, enthusiastic to use his strength to please the people around him.
This is really interesting. Honestly, that's a really great idea, giving Bowser amnesia and just seeing who he truly is. Or I guess maybe it's more of like another side to him. Also, I thought that line was pretty great. She's my damsel to distress.
Showing how his evil upbringing has influenced him and just how important using his power for someone's benefit is to Bowser. It just so happens that his own benefit is usually the best when Bowser has his right mind about him. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door shows us Bowser at his most comedic, desperately trying to insert himself into a plot that seems to take joy in leaving him behind. Bowser is always one step behind the player, knowing that someone else has kidnapped Princess Peach and that Mario is up to something involving a treasure hunt, and desperate to reclaim his relevance. And every single time, he makes a fool of himself in each encounter.
Oh god, why does this sound like a content creator past their prime? And they're just trying to pull all these stunts to gain relevancy again. It's like, it's okay, bro, it's fine. You still have your fans. Don't have to pull all this weird stuff in order to get ahead, but hey, it happens.
Bowser is an utter joke here, doing everything he can to crash his simple kidnap the princess story into a far more complex narrative, even incidentally being dispatched by Mario in a random wrestling match midway through the story with no fanfare. Until, through sheer force of will, he collapses directly into the penultimate boss fight, inadvertently saving both Peach and Mario from a hostage situation because no other villain is gonna take his spotlight.
Hell yeah.
Super Paper Mario takes this form of Bowser to its logical extreme. A new villain setting up a sham wedding between the dastardly despot and Princess Peach that is so utterly ridiculous and against the laws of the universe that it summons a dark heart of chaos threatening to end all realities in a gaping void, which... Wow, okay, rude on like a...
No. What the fuck is this? The memes?
Metacontextual level. Bowser joins Mario's side once again, after both losing in a fight against him and having to be convinced that there won't be a world to rule over if all worlds get destroyed.
Yeah,
and
bro. I mean, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Can't do all your evil, dastardly stuff if there ain't anything left to be evil over.
Most of his minions are being brainwashed and bossed around by an even more evil boss than him.
Somebody better than you.
And that's more than enough to get Bowser on board. After trouncing everything in his path and insulting any touchy-feely nonsense he sees on the way, Bowser actually ends his story here with a heroic sacrifice, holding up a collapsing ceiling so that the Mario Brothers and Princess Peach can run to safety. Go! Sure, he does it as something of a contest of strength with a burly mini-boss to prove that, yeah, Bowser is the strongest around. No one gets to show him up when it comes to raw power. But he ultimately does come around to care for those who he finds deserve his respect. Whether that be his minions, Chunks, or even Mario himself.
Wowza!
I mean, he gets better. Like, Luigi even says he survived worse. But we get to see Bowser out of his comfort zone, forced to play the hero and not even on his own terms, and still trying to sell himself as the grade A final boss he believes himself to be. He is still always evolving as a...
Man... I actually really like this take. Saturday night cartoon villain who knows exactly who he is, and that he's a Saturday night cartoon villain, and he relishes in it. He wants to be the greatest one ever.
The character, in spite of the inherent simplicity that his design and role require of him. And simple is perhaps the perfect term for his largest starring role. Showtime! Mario and Luigi, Bowser's inside story.
Bowser
Excuse
really
me?
does suck. And I mean that in a good way.
Here, Bowser is pushed to all of his logical extremes, using his time in the protagonist spotlight to say as many funny quips as he can, beat up as many chumps as he can see, and prove the overwhelming strength and coolness of the King of Awesome as many times as he can.
This guy.
Bowser's story starts with him rushing to the Mushroom Kingdom's aid as its subjects become infected with a hot new fetish disease, the Blorbs.
No! Oh god! Look, we don't yuck anyone else's yums here. But, like, you know what? You do you. As long as you're not hurting anybody else.
Diplomacy from Bowser goes terribly, and after getting trounced by Mario so quickly that even he's disappointed in himself, Bowser is so desperate for success that he eats some weird drugs from some dude he met in the forest who definitely didn't get him possessed by a witch before.
What?
And after being used by his new dealer to get the Mario Brothers out of the way and having his castle taken from under him, Bowser goes on a globe-trotting trek to reclaim his honor, home, and crush anyone who's in his path. Inside story.
I actually really like this idea for a game, though. Play it from the quote-unquote villain side and have them be the protagonist. Put you in their shoes. Of course, it really all started with Super Mario RPG, but all these following entries with Paper Mario in this game really enhance that.
He features Bowser at his largest. He's the most brash he's ever been. He's the dumbest he's ever been. He's the most headstrong he's ever been. But he's also the strongest he's ever been. The player gets to feel the sheer joy of Bowser's raw power. Understand why he just plunges in head first to every situation, fists flying. Get why his minions respect this idiot who fails again and again so much. Bowser may have a lot of faults, but quitter is never one of them. And he'll pull off absolutely ridiculous feats of strength, grow to epic proportions, and never, ever doubt his incredible power to get his way. Everything that Bowser stood for as a villain is put right into the player's hands to let loose. Everyone able to experience the prideful, single-minded joy of being the Koopa King. And as he ends up punching out a dark god with his bare fists...
Of course. The end of every RPG. You gotta fight God.
There's a deep appreciation for the guy there. Yeah, this is the dumbest, most oafish Bowser ever put in a game, but damn it, this is Bowser! The pure joy of being able to play as an overpowered boss is set loose in an entire RPG built around him, and also the Mario Brothers, but we don't talk about them half as much. You are Bowser! You are great! Everything that Bowser is and has been built up to be is instantly understood by just hitting things in the face, even without thinking! And Bowser wouldn't have it any other way. After perhaps his most defining role, Bowser would continue right on refining his character. He still has his appearances in RPGs, and though they would generally be simplified compared to his Super Paper and Inside Story portrayals, he's remained the determined, prideful meathead he'd built himself up to be. And also got possessed by a symbiote once just because he wanted a rainbow shell. Which is adorable. His relationship with his son, Bowser Jr., was given a far greater emphasis. Bowser being portrayed as a caring father who just wants the best for his little boy. The Koopa King would constantly check in on Jr., talk about his parenting philosophies, and generally make sure that his Koopa Prince would grow into the incredible future tyrant he was destined to be.
Once again, who did he have Bowser Jr. with? But yeah, no, I've already talked about this before in the video. It's just really cute.
And in Bowser Jr.'s journey, a game that no one played, the effect that Bowser's had on his kid is fully shown. Jr. not believing that his father is inherently wrong or evil. It's all a matter of perspective. Sometimes you just want to be a guy who conquers the Mushroom Kingdom, and that makes you cool.
That's my boy. Well put, son.
I mean, good and evil are relative, and he's not wrong. But I don't know if the methods that Bowser Jr. is going about with all of this is necessarily a good thing for most people.
And, as perhaps the culmination of his character growth in the main series, Super Mario Odyssey portrays an incredibly competent Bowser. always one step ahead of Mario, plundering the entire world as he prepares a perfect wedding between himself and Princess Peach. He's as conniving as he's ever been.
Why is that
Puts
ring
his
so
romantic
big?
rivalry with Mario right into the forefront of the game, and actually gets a win over Mario in the opening cutscene, establishing his immense power narratively for once. By the end of the game, Bowser is a threat the player is glad to take down once again. And then...
We become Bowser? What?
Bowser decides to combine everything he's ever stood for into one final stretch. Taking advantage of the game's mechanics like he always does, Bowser gives the player an opportunity to possess him with Cappy. And for the first time in a mainline Mario game, take the Koopa King out for a joyride.
Hell yeah.
Bowser is just as adept of a platformer as Mario is, but with much more strength. Able to
it's
destroy
really
anything
cool.
in front of him with his claws and endure twice the punishment that the paltry plumber could take. Everything about this sequence is absolutely euphoric.
Oh, and then we swap between the two styles. I was wondering, because like that looked like the UI for the same game. Oh man, I really love it when games do that. I wouldn't say it was like the most prominent aspect of Nier Automata, but like those moments where the gameplay shifts, and it shifts like super smoothly too, still stick with me till today.
Selling one simple fantasy. Being Bowser is an utter power trip. It's fun to just muscle through everything directly in front of you with reckless abandon. And you beat...
Actually, it kind of makes sense now too, of like why Bowser approaches things the way that he does. If he's this powerful, then yeah, if you're always this powerful your entire life, then you're going to see things in a very different way from anybody else.
This absolute beast on a regular basis through skill and grit alone. What a guy. So that's an overview of Bowser, a character designed around being an obstacle for the player to use their skills to overcome, and then characterized around that to make sure he'd want to be that big, fearsome obstacle, all while adding flavor and pushing the character forward as part of the Mario universe. And on its own, that's incredible. The platformers and RPGs alone creating an utterly fantastic villain. But there are dozens upon dozens of spin-offs that further reinforce all of Bowser's
Even the
best
spin-offs?
qualities. Mario Kart features Bowser as a super heavyweight in all of his appearances, featuring the highest top speed and the power to push anyone he wants around, but poor turning and acceleration. Bowser's inherently the best, but you gotta be perfect to maintain it. Mario
Just like
sports
Bowser
games
is.
always make sure to max out Bowser's power with blazing fastballs and killer drives that would make anyone else envious. But they come at the cost of moving like, well, a giant turtle, and throw any kind of finesse out the window.
Oh,
Smash
no.
Brothers features Bowser as the heaviest member of its roster, an utter tank of a character who may be light on references and unfortunately bestial, but can bust through shields like they're nothing, doesn't flinch at all at weak attacks, and can utterly demolish anyone who'd stand up to him with just a few devastating moves. All of Bowser's dozens of playable appearances contribute to his identity, a bruiser with the most devastating power imaginable. But throw him off his game and prevent him from smacking you around with skill, and he's got nothing else to rely on.
I mean, it's just like in the Mario games.
When you play as Bowser, no matter what game you're enjoying, you are the boss character. And you can dominate like the Koopa King, or be humiliated just as easily as you can jump around Bowser in the main series. And then there's Mario Party.
Oh no.
Most Mario spin-offs,
The game
by
that ends
nature of having
friendships.
Bowser being playable, need to keep the Koopa King in check, in line with the rest of the cast. In theory, at least. But what happens when you don't just take the limiters off of Bowser, but tell him to go wild and bully everyone underneath him? Well, you get Bowser at his most absolutely and delightfully devilish. Mario Party Bowser is as much of a terror as he is a troll, shaking up board events on a whim and injecting humor wherever possible. Who can forget him fat-shaming victims who wear his inner tube, dressing as a cowboy and threatening people's lives, or inventing a machine that can generate a gold coin out of thin air? That costs 20 coins from you to operate.
Oh, no!
Mini-games for the survival of your bank
Friggin'
account.
Bowser, what the?
Mini-games where he'll bribe these idiots to be the one to lose first to see them in pain. Chance time that is rigged to only favor him.
Time?
The revival of the sickle and star for the glory of an equal world under Koopa. Rejecting his beliefs and setting up a capitalist emporium on the ruins of some shop he demolished. Bowser is just delighted to do anything and everything he can to make your life specifically miserable. And the
Actually, I think in the newer Mario Party games, you can't play as Bowser, right? I don't think I've seen people playing as him. It's just him screwing everybody else over. It's kind of a shame if that's really the case. Man, I totally play as Bowser. And because I'm kind of on my fighting game arc at the moment, I was like, you know, if someday I ever did play Super Smash Bros., maybe I'll try out Bowser. I might like him a lot. Even if, you know, maybe he's not the greatest character ever, but like, who cares about the meta?
best part is, he affects everyone equally. Sure, someone who lands on a Bowser space has the greatest odds of getting screwed over, but Bowser can easily drag down everyone around them, or even occasionally help them, throwing them coins out of pity if they're poor, or giving them an item designed to steal from others. Bowser is first and foremost an agent of chaos in Mario Party, proving the series' philosophy that anyone can be a winner, but everyone can be a loser. And dragging every player down to the bottom is just absolutely hysterical. Bowser is the perfect villain for the series, getting some of his best lines and funniest schemes while also getting players to curse his name more times than he could ever manage as a platforming boss. And when they tried to sell a game on the back of you can be as massive of a dick as Bowser now, well, Wii U aside, that proves he's doing something right.
I mean, they clearly know what the target audience for these games usually ends up doing. Every single match, it really tests your relationships with your friends and family members.
And finally, with that, we still don't have the full breadth of Bowser's influence. We've got the Super Mario Brothers movie, showing Bowser as an unstoppable wrecking ball that the entire world is right to fear, before hard pivoting into his love of peaches. Yet even at his most humorous, he can only show affection through villainy.
I'll be sacrificing them in your honor.
To Bowser, true love.
I never asked for any of this. Peach, I was like, what? Actually, does Princess Peach have any lore? I've always felt like she's kind of been one of the most like bland female characters in games. But who knows? I could be wrong. I think they also released a video game recently with Princess Peach as like the main character. But when it comes to like agency within the series, I feel like Zelda has way more than Princess Peach ever does. So it made sense when they made the new Zelda game. Well, where you actually play as Zelda and not Link.
Love is the lives we snuffed out along the way. There's his appearances as Baby Bowser through the Yoshi series, more RPGs, how players use him in Mario Maker, world building done through theme parks. Look at this look he gives Mario in Sparks of Hope. There is no way he can look weak in front of his rival. But I think you get the idea. What started as a simple but well-designed obstacle evolved into a boss fight that always challenged the idea of movement and new concepts that Mario wanted to explore. As a character, he evolved into a deconstruction of what being a villain in a game really meant, turning into a prideful meathead whose overwhelming power and ambition would always see him through. As a design, he evolved into whatever the game at hand needed him to be, a charming buffoon one moment and a terrifying monster the next, while never feeling out of touch or out of place with his character. As a playable character, he became an absolute power fantasy, monstrous strength mixed with an unga-bunga mentality that could easily crush anything in his path, as long as he could keep any of his foes from dancing around him. And as a villain, what was once just a series of scribbles and ideas for a really mean turtle has become the most defining bad guy in all of video games. There are dozens, if not hundreds of reasons to enjoy Bowser's villainy, and tons of different aspects that many can latch onto and say is their favorite part of Bowser. And each and every single one of them adds up to making Bowser the exceptional character and villain that he is today. Villains since Bowser have accomplished many things. They're master manipulators that toy with players' emotions.
Was this a System Shock? I don't know anything about this game, but I've been meaning to check it out.
They're charming goofballs with the right amount of gumption to always be a pleasure to fight. They're one-hit wonders that use their single game in specific to catapult them into legend. Bowser has been there, done that, checking off every single box, doing absolutely everything he can, and every one of his hundreds of appearances all contribute to the aura of the Koopa King. He can be a mastermind with ambitions of a galactic empire 1 minute, and the king of guys who talk to posters the next. A troll and a model father, an utter dunce and an inspiring leader, a horrible monster and a hopeless romantic. And every single one of these appearances is united through the incredible charisma and prideful personality of Bowser.
Feel bad for
Bowser is a villain who is always growing, where every story told about him adds to his legend, where each new gameplay gimmick he throws onto himself is just another way that he's trying to beat Mario at his own game, where every single new Mario game can be looked forward to with the excitement of, oh man, can you imagine what Bowser's going to do in this one? Bowser isn't just a video game villain. He is video game villainy. In gameplay, in character development, in design, in mood, in application, Bowser has looked at every single aspect of how to be an effective villain in a game and made it part of who he is.
The initial premise for the video makes a whole lot more sense now, and it really stems from Bowser's own motivation to just being the greatest villain ever. The self-reflection and the awareness of what he is makes it so that it fits perfectly with what video game villains should become. A great example for many to follow.
I may personally have villains who I love more than Bowser, and there may be many who do
Was that from, what was that visual novel called? It was kind of in the same universe as Higurashi, but not really. Umineko. Was that from Umineko? The art style looks similar. Also, I just realized you guys probably don't know what I'm referring to, but here. This girl on the bottom right corner of the screen.
And there may be many who do individual elements of this whole evil shtick better than old King Koopa does.
Nano machine,
but
son.
As a total package, with hundreds of games, dozens of stories, fights, playable appearances, and millions of lives, coins, and stars lost to the guy backing him up, with those numbers growing to this very day, there is no competition. After all this time, and perhaps for decades to come, Bowser is still the greatest villain in all of gaming. Long live the king.
as expected from these deep character dives. I've just grown such a greater appreciation for Bowser, man. I always thought he was just a bad guy for the sake of being a bad guy, but, well, actually, in a way, he kind of is. It just works out so well for him. And, like, he's such an incredibly flexible character, which I don't think many villains are able to achieve this level of flexibility with their motivations and just what would make sense for their character. It's really no wonder why the Mario series is so popular, because we had these phenomenal ideas that we built upon, and these fantastic, relatable characters that people have grown attached to over the years. But man, like, this warm fuzzy feeling that you get when you finish a video like this, or just like learning about something new about this cool video game that nobody ever really pays attention to, and now you just gain a much greater appreciation for it, is why I just love learning about all this stuff. Video games are awesome, man. And a lot of people appreciate them, but I still think more people should. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it from me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.